When I got on the Park Police, and the chief did personal interviews with new recruits, I'll never forget the day he's looking down this conference table at me, and he said, well, where you want to be 20 years from now as a Park Police officer? I said, well, sir, I said, I'd like to be sitting at that end of the table asking the same question to a recruit. And he looked at me and says, you want to be the chief of police? I said, I don't know why not. I said, it looks like a pretty good job to me. You know, that started me out. That was my first interview with the Park Police. We're talking 1965. Back then, it was a small force of 350, 400 people. Well, my time with the Park Police was priceless. And then, of course, we had, seems like demonstrations every week. All the various demonstrations.
I have a dream today.
Celebrations. Washington D.C. was just rich in history, but we were making history at the same time. We were living the Constitution, the Bill of Rights especially. The Bill of Rights is so important to us, and those rights to remain, your rights of speech, and that's what Park Police get involved in an awful lot in demonstrations and this freedom of speech. And I had the opportunity to work just about every job on the force. Foot officer, just working foot beats downtown around the White House. Cruiser, downtown parks, parkways. And I became a motorcycle police officer. I got a chance to escort various presidents. For instance, when Nixon was the president, he liked the presidential yacht, Sequoia. All of a sudden he'd say, well, let's go down and take a boat ride. Well, that was not an easy thing to do, because now when he would think about that, it was always in the middle of rush hour traffic. Always. And so all of a sudden you'd get a call from Secret Service, hey, the president's thinking about going to the boat, can you all set up a traffic plan? The presidential motorcades were always very interesting. They've become much more complicated nowadays because it's not just a limousine and a few cars and Secret Service and an ambulance. Now it's like 25 vehicles with helicopters over the top, and it gets a little bit more complicated. That was a good job. I did that for 3 years. Then I became a motorcycle sergeant. That was even a better job. I told people that I would trade being a Park Police chief for going back to be a motor sergeant if I could keep my pay as a chief, Yeah, I became the chief of the U.S. Park Police in 1991. And I served as chief for 10 years. That's not the end of my story, but there is another story and that was when I was 17 and a half years old. I joined a volunteer firefighting organization called the Bethesda-Chevy Chase Rescue Squad.
96 men led by an equipment dealer of Bethesda, Maryland, a town close to the capital of the United States.
Provided emergency first aid and rescue in the Bethesda-Chevy Chase area and beyond. That got me involved in basic first aid, ambulance and rescue squad, weaving through traffic, blowing your siren. That was 1959. This was before the days of the EMT and the paramedics. And with that gave me a very unique perspective. I'm still a member of the rescue squad. I've been a member 60 plus years, always as a volunteer. These were like my fire badges. Being a chief and a volunteer at the same time was unique, but it was the volunteer experience that gave me the experiences to become a good chief. I can run off on a bunch of different tangents with service. But I think all of us want to be useful to our nation, useful to our citizens, useful to our family. It made you feel good that you were helping people. And so there was those volunteer experiences that led me, and I think propelled me to become a better police officer.